The shadows of the aqueduct. At the foot of the gigantic, ancient aqueduct, whose stone arches span the valley like petrified giants, lay the Nordheim village, where MyDyingBride and Vemata spent their childhood. It was a childhood marked by the harsh winds of the northern lands, but also of a deep peace. While other children played marbles or caught fish in the river, their father, the chief of the tribe, taught the two sisters the arts that were essential for survival in the exiled lands. MyDyingBride, the elder, was always the more thoughtful, more observant one. She absorbed every lesson like a sponge. Vemata, 3 years younger, was wilder, more impulsive, but no less skilled. From a young age, they sat firmly in the saddles of the shaggy Nordheim horses, their small hands gripping wooden practice weapons with a determination that astonished many adults. Their father saw them not only as his daughters, but also as the future guardians of their tribe, and he was proud of their unwavering loyalty to one another. Their mother, a woman of quiet strength, taught them the secrets of herbs and the wisdom of ancient stories that warmed hearts during the harsh Nordheim winters. Their life was a simple but happy rhythm of hunting, training, and gathering around the warm fire in the chieftain's great hut, the high walls of the village and the imposing presence of the aqueduct seemed to promise them eternal security. But exile did not bring eternal peace. The cold winter evening. The evening was bitterly cold. The snow crunched beneath the guards' boots when a scream ripped through the silence. The village was overrun. Looters, emerging from the shadows of the blizzard, stormed the huts. Chaos erupted. MyDyingBride and Vemata fought side by side, with their parents, their young weapons dancing, and a desperate dance against the odds. But the attackers were too many, too brutal. The girls watched their parents, the strong, indomitable chieftains, fall to the ground, their eyes filled with despair as they were dragged. Amid the carnage, MyDyingBride grabbed Vemata's hand. "Run!" she whispered, her voice thick with tears and smoke. Taking advantage of the confusion, they slashed their way through the marauding figures and ran into the freezing night. The snow burned their bare faces. The screams of their village echoed in their ears. They ran until their lungs burned, until their legs gave way. But in their panicked escape, driven by fear and despair, their paths diverged in the darkness and the raging blizzard. One fall, one misstep, and MyDyingBride lost contact with her younger sister. She called her name, but only the wind answered. Desperately, she searched, crawling through the snow. But Vemata was gone, swallowed by the mercilessness of the night. MyDyingBride was left alone, with the burning pain of loss and the empty shell of her childhood. 10 years later, 10 long, gruesome years have passed. 10 years of survival in the harsh, deadly lands of Conan Exiles. MyDyingBride is no longer the girl who once played at the foot of the aqueduct. She is a seasoned warrior, a survivor, marked by the scars of countless battles. But the greatest scar is the emptiness in her heart, the never-fading pain of losing her family, and especially her sister. She has vowed to find Vemata. Every camp she raids, every slaver she encounters, every ruin she explores is a search for a clue, a rumor, a sign. The image of Vemata's small face the last time she held her hand is present in her dreams and her driving force when awake. The aqueduct is now a distant memory, but the pain of her lost childhood and the uncertainty of Vemata's fate burns as brightly as it did on the first day. MyDyingBride knows that Vemata is out there somewhere, perhaps trapped, perhaps free, but alive. And she won't rest until she finds her little sister, until she can reunite the family that's shattered on a cold winter night. The reunion in the shadow of the ruins. 10 years of searching, hope, and despair had turned MyDyingBride into a survivor whose heart seemed forged of steel. But even the strongest steel breaks under the right strain. She had heard rumors, vague hints, of a Nordheimer known for her unusual skill at building traps and silently killing from the shadows. A shadow walker. They called her in the southern regions. The name that stuck was Vemata. The trail led MyDyingBride deep into the ruined cities of the exiled lands, where sand and thorns swallowed the once proud legacy of a lost civilization. She spent weeks combing ruins, disarming traps too precise for mere bandits, and tracking invisible leads through the windswept alleys. The scent of fire smoke and a strangely familiar, almost forgotten feeling in her heart drew her ever deeper into a labyrinth of crumbling buildings. A familiar face. MyDyingBride stalked a small group of relic hunters surrounding a fire pit. She was about to clear them out of the way when her gaze caught a figure standing off to the side. Sharpening a knife with a meticulous precision MyDyingBride knew all too well. Her hair was longer and wilder than she remembered, her face harder, suntanned and scarred. But the way she tilted her head, the determined set of her mouth, it couldn't be anyone else. It was Vemata. A shock shot through her, so deep that she momentarily forgot to breathe. The relic hunters, who had been her target just seconds before, vanished from her consciousness. She stepped out of the shadows. Vemata raised her head, her eyes as sharp as the blade in her hand, as she perceived the movement. A moment of silence, then a blink of uncertainty in Vemata's eyes. She knew that look, that attitude. It was the look of her big sister, the one she had lost so long ago. MyDyingBride nodded, unable to speak, tears welling up in her eyes that she hadn't shed in years. When they reached each other, it wasn't the embrace one would expect after 10 years. It was a cautious touching of hands, a groping for reality. Then, the certainty of seeing each other again after years of separation, pain, and loneliness. They sat by the fire all night, barely speaking, but exchanging stories. Not with sounds, but with glances, with the touch of their hands, which said so much more than 1,000 words. Vemata told of her escape, of the years of slavery in which she had honed her skills to survive, of her liberation and her life as a solitary hunter. MyDyingBride spoke of her tireless search, of the danger she had overcome, and of the hope she had never given up. The wounds were deep, the scars of the past would remain, but the reunion had built a bridge over the chasm of separation. The sisters were no longer the girls from the Nordheim village. They were marked by the exiled lands, but their bond, once torn apart by a cold winter evening, was now stronger than ever. The relic hunters, using a ruin as a shelter, saw only 2 figures the next morning, disappearing into the distant sand dunes at dawn. 2 sisters finally reunited and ready to avenge the deaths of their parents in a world that had once taken everything from them.